There's a specific kind of pain that car people carry. It doesn't show up until it's too late. It's the moment you realize you didn't miss the car, you missed the timing. Because somewhere right now, a car you saw for $12,000 just sold for more than most people make in a year. Cars built for tight mountain roads, late-night expressways, and a complete... Let's start with a car that never lied to you. That's rare. In an industry built on marketing language and aspirational fiction, 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. The Honda S2000 was brutally, almost aggressively honest. It told you exactly what it was. A front-engine, rear-wheel drive, two-seat roadster. No turbo, no all-wheel drive, no padded seats, just a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated engine screaming, and I mean screaming, to 9,000 revolutions per minute. One of the highest redlines ever fitted to a production streetcar. An engine so finely tuned that Honda engineers at the time described it as the closest a mass production motor had ever come to a Formula One unit. This was 1999. They put this car in a showroom for $32,000. People complained it was too loud. Car journalists, people who were paid to understand performance machinery, wrote it off as impractical. And Honda listened. Sort of. In 2004, they released the AP2, the revised model. Bumped the displacement to 2.2 liters, softened the power delivery slightly, gave it a broader torquey curve. The AP1 purists never forgave them for it. The AP2 became its own religion. Here's where it gets interesting, and where the grief starts. The S2000 was discontinued in 2009, not because it failed, not because of some dramatic corporate decision. Honda just stopped making it. The global financial crisis hit. Sports car sales across the board fell off a cliff. And for years, used S2000 sat in the market at prices that made no sense. $12,000, $15,000, $18,000. Low mileage examples that had been garage kept by enthusiasts who understood what they had were letting them go for money you could get from a decent used SUV trade-in. Because the mainstream hadn't woken up yet. Then something happened. The generation that grew up playing Gran Turismo, that saw the S2000 as a fantasy car in a video game, started having real money. They started importing clean Japanese spec examples. The Formula One engine narrative started spreading on YouTube, and Reddit clean AP2s started disappearing from the sub-$20,000 market. And then they disappeared from the sub-$30,000 market. And then the $40,000 barrier. Right now, in 2026, a clean, low-mileage Honda S2000 AP2 in unmolested condition is selling at auction between $45,000 and $65,000. The people who sold theirs for $14,000 in 2012 don't talk about it much, or they just say, I had one, I let it go. That sentence carries weight. That sentence is grief. The Honda S2000 was always a masterpiece. The market just took 25 years to agree. But grief has a cousin. And that cousin is outrage. And if you've ever known what it feels like to watch something exceptional get destroyed by people who should have protected it, this next chapter is going to hit different. I want to talk to you about a man named Tommi Mäkinen. Not a car yet. A man. Finnish rally driver. 4 consecutive World Rally Championship titles: 1996, 1997, 1998, 1999. The first driver in WRC history to win 4 in a row. He did it in a Mitsubishi Lancer. A Lancer. The same car your insurance agent drives. That car, that nameplate, was the weapon that Tommi Mäkinen used to dismantle the world's most elite rally competition across dirt roads and ice stages and hairpin mountain passes 4 times in a row. Mitsubishi knew what they had. And in 1999, they did something extraordinary. They built a road car to honor him. The Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 6 Tommi Mäkinen Edition, a homologation special, built to commemorate 4 championships. Limited production. Specific modifications signed off on by Mäkinen himself. Quicker steering ratio, revised suspension geometry tuned closer to the rally car setup, and updated front bumper for better aerodynamic cooling. This was specific, intentional, real, and for most of its early life in the used market, you could pick one up for $15,000, maybe less if you knew where to look. The Evo community knew what the TME was. Collectors in Japan knew. Import specialists knew. The wider market had no idea. Here's what changed it. The rally revival, not the sport itself. Rally as a cultural reference point. Younger audiences discovering WRC highlights on YouTube. Games like EA Sports WRC bringing an entirely new generation into the narrative. Mitsubishi abandoned the Lancer Evolution line in 2016, which means the TME isn't just a collectible sports car, it's a final chapter artifact. It represents the pinnacle of a dynasty that no longer exists. Scarcity has 2 faces. One is low production numbers, the other is an extinct bloodline. The TME has both. Values on clean, unmolested Evo 6 TME examples have moved from that $15,000 to $20,000 range to well beyond $50,000 for documented, low-mileage specimens. Rally-correct examples, matching colors, original parts, proper provenance, are pushing towards 6 figures in private sales. 6 figures for a Lancer. For a car that Mitsubishi's American marketing division barely acknowledged existed. For a car that most dealerships on this side of the Pacific had never seen in person. And here's the dark irony that should make every Illicit Wheels viewer feel that familiar slow burn outrage. Mitsubishi didn't kill the Evo because it wasn't good enough. They killed it because they decided to pivot toward SUVs and crossovers. They abandoned Mäkinen's legacy. The market didn't. The market remembered. And now it's paying tribute the only way a market knows how. In money. But our third car? Our third car has a different story. Because Toyota didn't kill it out of greed. Toyota killed it because they were afraid of it. They called it the Widowmaker. And right now, in 2026, the market has decided it doesn't care about the danger. This is the Toyota MR2 SW20 Turbo. And this is where the story gets complicated. There's a car in the JDM world that has a reputation. Not a good one, necessarily. The Toyota MR2 SW20 Turbo has been called, by people who should know, one of the most dangerous cars ever sold to the general public. Not because it was poorly built, because it was too precise for most people who bought it. Mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, turbocharged, in a car that weighs just over 2,700 pounds. The weight distribution is extraordinary, almost perfectly balanced, 45% front and 55% rear. At speed, in the right hands, it is surgical. It responds to input the way a sports car should respond. Professional test drivers nicknamed it the Widowmaker. Toyota kept selling it, because in the hands of someone who understood what they were doing, who respected the physics, it was one of the greatest driver's cars of the era, and the turbo version took everything the naturally aspirated car was, and added a 3S GTE engine, producing around 245 horsepower. The MR2 SW20 Turbo was, in several measurable ways, a supercar. It just cost $25,000 instead of $200,000. For years, the MR2 was the car that the internet couldn't decide on. Forums were split. Half the threads were about how incredible it was to drive. The other half were accident reports. In 2026, something has crystallized around the SW20 Turbo. The collector community has begun to separate the mythology from the machine. Drivers who know how to drive have stopped being afraid of the car's reputation and started seeing it as a feature. low mileage, unmolested SW20 Turbo examples, particularly Japanese domestic market cars with the proper 3S GTE spec and documented history, were selling for $15,000 to $22,000 as recently as 5 years ago. Today, clean examples have crossed $40,000. The Widowmaker is becoming a trophy, and trophies go up in value. So, 3 cars: the Honda S2000, the masterpiece they discontinued without ceremony; the Lancer Evolution 6 Tommi Mäkinen edition; the Rally Dynasty artifact they buried for profit margins; the Toyota MR2 SW20 Turbo; the Widowmaker. 3 machines built by engineers who gave everything, discontinued by executives who were looking somewhere else. And now, the market is correcting aggressively. Here's the question I'll leave you with, because there's always a question on this channel. If the S2000, the Evo TME, and the MR2 Turbo were all undervalued for 20 plus years, what does that tell you about what's sitting in the market right now? Subscribe, and I'll see you in the dark.